Hello friends, it's Monica again. I'm always excited to share with you, and today I'm especially excited because sometimes we all just need a change of scenery, don't we? Nothing relaxes me more than a trip to the mountains, maybe a long weekend in the mountains, or just hanging out on the beach. Having grown up here, nothing is more calming than putting my feet in the sand and enjoying the sunshine and listening to the waves. And that's where I am today. In fact, let me see if I can show you my view. I'll come out here on the balcony, spin you around. How beautiful, right? How beautiful. Sometimes we all just need to get away. Sometimes we all need to change our environment. And that's what I'm going to be talking to you about today. Yes, it's nice to get away. Yes, it's nice to wind down and to not think about our to-do list. And it's amazing, in fact, that studies have actually been done that have said that when you remove yourself from an environment that can cause our stress levels to be high, that it can actually change our heart rate. It can lower our heart rate. It can lower our blood pressure, reduce our cortisol levels. It's phenomenal what a change of environment can do. My question for you is, are you in a healthy environment, an ideal environment for continued personal growth? Sometimes we have to stop and look at that environment as well. I was thinking to myself that about 3 years ago, we had an apple tree in our backyard. And I have never grown an apple tree. So I was so excited about this. We planted this apple tree, and I guess it was about 3 years ago that it started producing apples. And one season, usually I picked the apples in late summer, early fall, and one season the apples, we weighed the bags, and we had 70 pounds of apples. I made apple butter, applesauce, everything that you can imagine that had apples in it that fall, and we even froze some. And then it's amazing how the very next year, that spring, we had some significant early frost that took place, or late frost. What would that be? Late frost in March when the buds were starting to bloom on my apple tree. And then we had a ton of rain on top of that, and I did not get hardly any apples. I was so upset. I thought, how do you go from 70 pounds of apples one year to not even 5 to 10 pounds the next year? Well, it's pretty simple. The environment changed for my apple tree. So I want to go back to my original question for you. Is it possible that you might need to change your environment and ensure that you're in an environment that is conducive to personal growth? What do I mean by that? Well, take a look at your inner circle. You see, the people that you associate with the most should be people who are cheering you on, people who are excited about your personal growth, people who are excited about the goals that you have set for yourself. And if that's not the case, then sometimes we've got to do one of two things. We've got to remove some people in our lives, or maybe not hang out with them as much as we once were, or if that's an immediate family member or someone under your own roof, sometimes that's not always possible, is it? But we can be intentional about putting somebody in our lives, ensuring that we find a support system, a group of people that can encourage one another, people who are on the same path as you, people who also want to focus on their personal development. Grandma was right back in the day when she said that you become like your company. It's so true, and we think that's just for young people who are growing up in the world, but the reality is adults as well. If we are on a personal growth path, we've got to be aware of the people that we are allowing into our inner circle. And sometimes we have to make changes. I think of an example. I had a sweet lady that I was coaching, and her marriage was not doing very well. There were some areas that could improve. And as I got to know her better, she shared with me, she admitted that a couple nights a week after work, she would go out with her girlfriends and have a couple of drinks before she came home. Her husband would come home from work and watch the kids, and that gave her a chance to wind down. And I asked her, I said, what would happen if just for 30 days you came home instead? Instead of surrounding yourself with that same inner circle every day or every night that you wanted to go out and have a couple of drinks, what if you came home instead and you told your husband that you chose to spend time with him? She wasn't so sure about that idea, but you know what? She gave it a try. And two things happened. First of all, her friends were not necessarily supportive. They began to ask her questions like, hey, do you think you're, like, what's up with that? Are you too good for us? I mean, why the change? But her goal was accomplished. Her husband was thrilled. And just that small change in her habits, in her environment, helped their marriage to move in the right direction. You know, I may have shared this story with you before, and maybe you've heard it before, but it's been said that when you go crab hunting, fishing, I'm not sure what you call that, when you go and you catch crabs, they say that if you put one crab in a bucket, that the crab inevitably will climb out. But the secret of that is not putting a lid on the bucket. The secret is simply throwing some other crabs in there with him. Because when there's another crab, a crab can't climb out of the bucket. They continue to pull each other down. No one can leave the bucket. So I just want to encourage you today to consider the people who are in your life day in and day out. Consider those friends who make you feel better when you're around them. You feel energized when you're around them. Those are people you want to keep in your inner circle. You want to keep closer to you. And think about those people that have you doubting your self-worth, have you doubting that you can accomplish something, have you questioning your ability to achieve certain goals. So I want you to sit down and go back to that reflection that we talked about recently and ask yourself these questions, because the reality is your potential is determined by the people who are closest to you. Ask yourself also, what am I putting in my mind day in and day out? What are you watching on TV? What are you listening to? What kind of music? Because what we put in our mind again and again and again on repeat tends to affect our heart. And when our heart is affected, our actions are affected. This happens all the time. You know, I believe that two things keep people from achieving their full potential. I see this often, in fact, when I'm chatting with people, when I'm coaching someone who says, you know, I have all these goals, all these things in my life that I'd like to improve, that I would like to be better. One of two things often keeps them back. Number one, they're not willing to pay the price. They're not willing to sacrifice. They're not willing to give up to go up. There's always a price to pay, right, when we want to change. Or number two, they're not willing to change their environment. So again, I just want to ask you to consider that. What could be changed in your life? How could you surround yourself with people who are like-minded, who have the same values, and who want to go where you want to go? Thank you for your time. This was a brief training today. Thank you for allowing me to share with you. And as always, give me a call if you need me. Thank you.